Hello, everyone, and welcome to our glorious February development update for Ashes of Creation. We hope that you've been having a wonderful and lovely month. If you haven't been following us, we did release a really cute calendar with lots of lovely pieces
Oh
of
yeah,
art.
that was so cool. I
Yeah,
loved the little calendar.
Peter came up with the concept, and I think Mike Vecchio was the one who put it together. So, social media and graphics team. Like we always say, we have like a different team that handles like community stuff versus the lovely development team that's rocking and rolling on the dev side. So, because did notice some comments that were like, "Why are you guys working on this when you should be working on the game?" Like, they're different people.
Oh,
I just
yes,
want to
there's a
set
lot of
that.
people contributing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And our team
Yeah.
is always trying to make sure that you guys have cool stuff and you get to see all the things on the social media and things of that sort if you, you aren't able to keep up with us at every moment.
And it was the month of love with the Valentine's Day. We had a little guess thing that Margaret did with the studio. You put a bunch of candies in this like heart-shaped vase, and then you told everyone to kind of guess, and we had a bunch of winners, didn't we?
Yeah, I tried to like use like heart shaped jelly beans because this is how nerdy our engineers are. They're like, well, I know how much a jelly bean weighs, and they're like trying to math it out to guess. It was really funny. Everyone
There
was
were some artists that wanted to render actually the size of the heart shaped in a 3D model, I think, as
yeah.
well. I
It's
heard.
too fun. But yeah, I had like three different colors of jelly beans, and so they guessed the overall, and then each of the different colored jelly beans, and the two closest to each of them, Price is Right style, so you can't go over the guess.
I
One,
know.
I can announce them if you want
Yeah,
publicly.
yeah,
It's more
I
internal
actually
stuff.
afterwards when I found out kind of the prize and whatnot, I suggested that the studio should have collaborated on all guessing one so that everyone would have tied for first place and it would have just been a studio-wide pizza party.
Oh, see, next time you guys, he's letting us gamify it. Don't You're gonna get yourself into trouble with
What
that.
I can't, they're not letting, it's a game studio. I'm surprised no designer said, "Hey, we should do this."
But yeah, Cody Yamamoto, because we have multiple Codys. Trad, Roy, and Kyle Grossman, and Cameron, and Jason Glenn, and Mitch Evans, and Matthew Lim all won.
All
So those were
one.
our winners, the closest guessers. And the only person who guessed like spot on, I believe, was, let me double check because I wrote it, because only one
They
person
guessed
guessed
spot
like a
on.
spot on number. That
Wow.
was Cameron. Cameron got like the red candies exactly the amount, which was 154. And then Kyle was the closest to getting almost all of them right because he was very close on all the guesses except for the red ones. I was like, dang, he was pretty good at like guessing how many were in the jar. But yeah, it was kind of fun, just fun,
It was fun.
internal stuff. And then we had little
Yeah.
candy, like little candy treat bags for everybody as well.
Oh, that was
So
cool.
we celebrated a little bit with the month of love for funsies and made a little game out of it because, we're game designers, game folks, game developers. But with that, of course, we do have a lovely stream for you all today, which is going to be if you've never been here before, down below, you can see kind of what the run of show will be, which we'll be going over reminders quick. We have a UI update. We actually had a chat with Colby, who's our UI UX lead, or lead UI UX designer, I think is the actual title.
Yep.
And Stephen and I had a lovely chat with them, and we will be playing that because
Yeah,
some people don't want to do
we noticed
live
last
recordings.
right. Well, we noticed that last month when we were showcasing the tank that there was a lot of positivity around the direction of the UI styling and the UI windows that you guys got to get a little sneak peek of. And so for this month, we thought it would be a really great idea to kind of walk through what updates are now existing in the UI lands for Ashes of Creation. And it is it is a pretty in-depth process. And I think you guys are going to be tickled to kind of learn more about it. So
Yeah,
we had a good conversation.
we've shown the process of how we create other things in the past, but we haven't gone over necessarily the nitty gritty when it comes to UI. So we hope that
Hmm.
you guys like seeing that, and we won't do all of things like this, but I
Yes,
think
and then
every
one
once in a
thing
while it's nice.
One thing I want to make sure though, as you guys are seeing some of these windows, so the beginning of the kind of discussion is going to be more about the modularity and the elements of the UI, and then near the end of the conversation, we show some full-on system windows. Some of those are going to be crafting, some are going to be a few other things. Remember, it is very important to remember that we are still in active development, and what you see on those windows, because I know everyone out there is
They're
going to
gonna
start
zoom in.
inspecting and zooming and talking about all the little numbers and details that live on these system windows. That everything is subject to change through development. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. And we will also be going over some character art, and there's a little bit of a concept art for environment that's part of that as well. And then we'll do our studio update and questions and answers. And then we have a little outro, that a little teaser about what's to come. So definitely
Little
stay all the
teaser.
way till the end. But with that, we'll just get right into the quick updates. And first and foremost, we have our YouTube subscriber comment. So if you'd like your comment spotlighted, all you have to do is follow our YouTube channel or subscribe to our YouTube channel and comment on our development update. So whenever we put this video up, we will be looking to see who folks who are subscribed to us. And this comment today is from Fish Toes 8901. Maybe they're a Tolnar, but they asked,
Fish shows Telnar.
what are your plans for rewarding exploration? For instance, will there be hidden slash secret quest lines or possibly secret doors slash zones that give no hints to being there? But if you have a specific class slash group composition, you can use your synergies to open them up and then be rewarded with either rare items or even better, unique items that are limited to either only one or very few per server. We do have artifacts, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, their exploration is a huge part of the game, and there are a lot of systems that are dedicated to rewarding exploration. I don't know, for many of you who have been following for a while now, circa 2018, 2019, we gave a few pre-alpha demonstrations around some utility spells, the ability kind of to discover hidden tracks or doorways that can only be revealed through a mage's utility spell of Arcane Eye or something. And those can reveal passageways that might contain hidden quests. They definitely grant exploration experience. There are relics in the world that can only be discovered if you're in a certain location at a certain time. There are constellations that can only be seen at a certain time at a certain location. So it, it's 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 kind of widespread how exploration can affect many different progression paths within the game, and it's not just about kind of visiting an area once and never coming back, because timing matters as well. So it's part of what makes an MMO an MMO, is that immersive feeling, being able to go out into the world and discover things and have those discoveries impact your gameplay to a degree. That's part of creating a holistic world that feels immersive. So exploration is a very big part of Ashes of Creation. It intersects with a lot of different systems.
Yeah. Explore, click things, look around, interact with people and NPCs who you don't, normally see. There will be things
Absolutely.
for sure for you to do.
I remember in a one game I played, they had these a unique achievement system where they granted you items for kind of reaching unique locations within the world. Like if you got to the top of a mountain for the
Oh, like the
first
little
time, you would
vistas,
unlock,
yeah.
yeah, you'd unlock like a unique achievement, and that would grant you an item that you could then use economically in some way, shape, or form. And we don't necessarily do that for just reaching certain vistas. However, there are also treasures that can exist out in the world, and maps that you can find that take you and kind of encourage that exploration, where you can reap a reward that is economic in gain. So that's also another
Even
element
in
of
Alpha
exploration.
1, we had a couple little jumping puzzles, and people who got there
Oh
found like the
yeah.
treasure chests that were there that had loot in them. So
Yes.
Don't worry, we'll have stuff for y'all.
Tristan
Um,
loved making those jumping puzzles.
I'm certain they do. And of course, just a quick reminder of our monthly cosmetic swap over for Songs of the Goddess. That is scheduled for March 8th, and we'll have our next set already for you as well. And reminder that these are things that we're going to be using for NPCs, creatures, buildings, and stuff like that in the world. So our goal is to kind of utilize them for design-oriented
Oh,
things.
and by the way, I noticed there's a few comments. I apologize. I'm not in the studio this week. I'm actually in Las Vegas again.
Go Dice!
Yes, there is a convention here for the gaming industry, for executives and kind of the business side of things, uh, in Vegas, and so I'm here for that. But I'll be returning back to the studio today. I was just a quick trip. I was here just a
That's a
couple
very
days.
quick trip because you just
I know.
left like last night, right? And then
Yes,
you're coming back
exactly.
today.
Yes.
But yeah, we you may see a few of us every once in a while at some of these events for this year, primarily for biz dev stuff. So, but if you see us, say hi. You know,
Yeah, and
we
if you're
don't
a
bite.
developer and if you know any developers and you want to recommend them to the studio, I will be at GDC and perhaps a couple more in the studio will be at GDC next month as well, which is the Game Developer Conference up in San Francisco. So, um, just to keep
Yeah,
thoughts out.
and I'll be at PAX East and Gen Con this year, so definitely come say hi if you're looking to chat with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, I think we are ready to move on to our UI update. I think we'll just toss it over there and we'll see you when we return back.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned this real quick.
Hmm.
This was recorded a couple of days ago, so you're going to see the discrepancy in the time of day. It's
It's
nighttime when
nighttime,
we were
yeah.
doing this. Yeah, but yeah, we
um,
had a lot of fun.
all right. We'll see you in a moment. And welcome a new face to our lovely development update. We have
Ooh.
Colby. How are you doing, Colby?
Hello.
Welcome,
Welcome.
Colby.
I'm doing really well. Yeah, excited to be on the live stream.
Yeah,
I
let's
know this is
introduce
the
you
first
first.
time. This is the first time we've ever actually had an in-depth focus on UI in the game, and I think it's going to be a pretty interesting topic. A lot of people are going to get some insight. But
Yeah.
Colby, tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, let's see. Where to start? I guess I've been a gamer for my entire life, as long as I've known.
What was the first
And
game that you remember playing?
He came out of the womb with a Atari.
yeah. Let's see. NES, playing some Mario.
All
Yeah.
Nice.
right.
Dying a lot. But yeah, so been a gamer my whole life. Got into gaming after going to school for, 3D art and being a concept artist, and then eventually found my way into UI, and I've been doing that for 7 or 8 years now. So yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. When it comes to UI, what's like your favorite part about it? Like what kind of inspires you?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of things. I mean, I love being able to use all my artistic skills that I've built up over the years, but then it's kind of a cool logical puzzle, right? We're like looking into how people react psychologically to,
Yeah.
Yeah, like the
different
behavior
information.
element of design. That always intrigues me too. There's a lot of that when it comes to communications as well, which is like, a lot of
Hmm.
behavioral stuff. Um, Whenever you're creating UI, it's not just you. You've got some homies as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about your team? I know that was something you really wanted to do. Be careful. Once you start naming names like Steven does, you got to name
Gotta
everybody.
gotta get all of them. Yeah, no, we've been super fortunate here. I came in and joined the team about a year ago, and was joining the team with Grat and Tim, who are two of our UI engineers.
Yeah.
And then we grew the team pretty quickly on the UI art and design side. So we've got Jeff, we've got Natalie, and we have Drew, who are all helping make this all happen. So everything
Yeah.
you'll see is going to be.
Yeah, you guys have built actually a great team. And, for the longest time, many of you guys out in the audience will know, as watching the project over time, that there hasn't been much love given to the UI front over the years. But you probably now have seen, especially with our last stream, a little bit of the peek under the hood for what's been going on with the UI team. And they have been doing an absolutely stellar job. I think we found the magic in this team. So very excited for what you're going to show today, Colby, and the progress that everyone on your team has made for the game. I mean, it just looks great.
Yeah, we always
Yeah,
start with a lot of programmer UI, and then it comes into the beautification happens, and we're now there.
Yeah, because before you get to the point where you are really understanding and cognizant of the nitty-gritty details that a particular system might have, some of that UI work can be wasted when it gets reauthored or it gets refactored, right? And now we're at a place where a lot of these GDDs and these systems are stood up and ready to kind of have complementary UI associated with it. And that's what we, I think, are really excited about, seeing that come to life, seeing the style of it, seeing everything you guys are doing. It looks great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a great transition into, the style element of it before we even get too crazy into showing you like the end goal. There's a lot of elements that are the steps prior to that. So I don't know if you want to first kind of walk us through what goes into creating like a style guide for UI. And if you want me to bring up anything on the screen, just let me know as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into building UI. It's not just, coming up with a bunch of things and throwing it onto screens. And, we put a lot of thought into this, and we wanted to take our time to build a real good style guide so we can, make sure our windows are consistent. And we can start showing some of the stuff. We can show you guys the process we went through. So,
Yeah. So we'll first bring
Now,
up.
you guys are going to be seeing, and Colby, if you want to talk just a little bit about, because a lot of people probably aren't accustomed to that modular approach and how you kind of define these borders and whatnot. Give them a little bit of context to what they're about to see. They're going to see some of these elements and be like, what is this?
Yeah, I guess we'll show you a lot of little pieces that are going to be part of a bigger picture eventually. So we really start with like shape language and all these little components, and we start designing out what are the motifs, these like simple graphic elements that'll help sell what is the Ashes of Creation UI, what is it all going to look like. And so we start with a lot of explorations. Like, this is just a small chunk of what we've worked through, and we're using those to start building up and make what a cohesive style that you'll see. So like, these will be like the corners of your window frames, and these will be what determines what the line breaks look like. And I know it's all very subtle, and a lot of people may not notice it all the time in games, but we wanted to get a really nice, subtle, but still fantasy style going through here.
Right, and there's a lot of different directions that UI can take. I mean, many of us who have played a lot of games can see the spectrum from really bulky, invasive, heavy kind of elements that you're accustomed to from the late 90s to the early 2000s, and where the direction's gone for UI a little bit with more modern games and more minimalistic approach. Talk to us a little bit about kind of the differences in those philosophies.
Yeah, totally. And it's definitely a flavor approach, right? So
Yes.
People choose between one of those things. And so one of the first things we always do is we gather tons of reference. And so we're all
Yes.
sitting down in a room and we're saying, oh, what do we see as the Ashes of Creation UI? And we, start picking from these different, more complex and artistic, or more subtle and minimalistic, or, a balance of the mix.
Right.
And
I remember some of the first conversations that you and I had with the broader team is with those reference boards, kind of dialing in what that visual, looks like for Ashes of Creation. And we saw modern takes on it. We saw older takes on it, traditional takes on it, bulkier takes on it, and even the filigree down to the very minute details of these borders and these corners. Like, there's just so many examples that live there. And you guys did a great job kind of condensing that feedback down into a very cohesive approach for the style. Talk to us about a little bit about how you utilize these corners and edges to kind of populate in a more modular fashion the broader design of the UI.
Yeah, so a big portion of what we do is kind of creating this like toolkit, basically. So rather than having every time you go to a screen, we have something new, it's here are all of these different things that we'll use to build a set of windows that are all going to look like they're built the same way. They're going to have a similar theme throughout. And we build in Engine, we'll build a bunch of these things as like components. So when we go in, like, the first screens we built always take the longest, because it's going to be, we're building all the little parts that we put in. And then once we do a button, it's like, oh, hey, here's the button. And then we'll keep populating those buttons throughout. And then like we're trying to build as smart as possible because we have a pretty big game ahead of us.
Yes.
And so everything we're doing is built modular so that we can update in one place and it'll go throughout the whole game. So if we decide, hey, we want our buttons to be, 10% brighter, here you go. It's quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've been
And
kind
as
of
you can
showing some of these along the way. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, as you can see on screen, I mean, there were a ton of different explorations that we went through here that, we started with that really rough just shape exploration and we picked our favorites from it after we kind of had like settled on a more, smaller, narrow set of styles. And then we just explored, what does that look like on a screen? What does it look like, with corner elements and line elements and breaks? And then you can see we start putting them into windows so that we can share and get, feedback. And that this process takes a while, but it's totally worth it in the end. So we have a really good foundation to keep moving forward from.
And I think the next group you had here was the inventory process. And this is kind of showing the process, like the walkthrough of like when you first are designing stuff into what it looks like once it's in game, correct? And so we'll start with the gray box, if you want to talk a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so this is giving people a little bit of insight on how we approach different screens. So the whole UI process usually starts with something like this, which is called UX, so user experience focused design. And so what we're doing is these are just a couple of small mocks based, like the document for the inventory is actually probably like 4 or 5 pages long, and it goes over all the little details of how you interact with things.
And so actually,
As a
that's a
user,
good
I
part
would
of
like to be
the.
able to click an icon and drag it from one box to another. Like it's a
Mhm.
lot of those little things that designers are designing.
And that's actually a good point to bring up as part of that initial ideation or that pipeline flow. You're reviewing these GDDs and understanding kind of what are the system requirements that you, from a UX perspective, have to incorporate as part of these wireframes or as part of these mocks.
Yeah, so we work with designers constantly here. We're talking with them about how to make their designs more user friendly and how to, accommodate what we want to make and make it the best version of it. So we work back and forth. We'll create these gray boxes, which can go over, like Margaret said, literally, like what does it look like when you're dragging an item, and it goes over all these little interactions because we'll build these things and then we'll pass them off to engineers who will hook it all up and make all the functions work. And those guys are, trying to get every little detail working just right so it plays really great. And the next step after the gray box is like approved, we go to an art mock. And so we take that style, and if there's anything new, we start applying those things and showing what filters look like and other things in that nature.
And when you're talking about filters, can you go a little into more detail regarding what that is?
Oh, yeah. So this one specifically is just like the filters on the backpack. So if we want to be able to search for just equipment, we can click equipment and it'll, we're going to show, hey, like when we do that, we're going to fade out the icon so that you can see just the equipment. But we don't want to reorganize your whole inventory because we know how players are about their inventory storage.
I'm very organized. I like my stuff. I'm kind of OCD about it.
Me too.
I'm as organized as the button that auto sorts my inventory.
Yeah. Colby and I have like a love for organization. I know whenever we're writing documents and stuff.
And then
oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. And this gets put straight into the game. So kind of like what you've seen with our concepts to 3D, we're kind of a little bit more of a kind of not siloed, but we have a little small team that builds this stuff all together. And we work with the designers, we work with engineers.
You're a service-oriented team, really. These requests can come in from engineering, from design, from art or whatever. And your guys' job is to kind of like understand where the request needs to service and deliver kind of that those elements to those teams.
Yeah, and we're the support team. We come in and we help make the design come to life and be playable and interactable. And then we get a lot of feedback, and we build these things to be easy to change and work. Like that's why we work so modular, is because if something, we play it and we're like, oh, that's not quite right, we can go and tune that and move it back and get it working just right. And so that's showing here the concept coming right into the game, and we have a whole toolkit that lets us build these windows a lot faster now that we've assembled that.
Yeah.
And a lot of
oh, go ahead.
players. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and obviously we're just showing the inventory, but we do this with like every piece of UI that we're going forward with, and there's a lot of back and forth. And obviously when we're creating these things, we're also keeping in mind a lot of the customization that you guys want as well. So
Right.
there may be options in the future where you can change different colors, and so those
Yes.
automatically adjust to everything for those specific elements and things of that sort. Especially for colorblind folks, we know that that's something that we want to support.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to
Stephen.
talk a little. That was what I was going to comment on was, Colby, share with our audience, I think, kind of your philosophy when it comes to customizing and options. As a
Mhm.
player, obviously, I know you have your own desires when you play these games. Tell us how we're going to be doing things differently in Ashes.
Yeah, we're going to have basically everything in the game will be customizable as much as we can support. So all of our windows will be scalable. All of our UI, we have a bunch of scaling options already exposed at this point in the game. And moving forward, we've already been working on a HUD editor. You'll be able to uniquely scale all of your different HUD elements and change potentially choose from different styles of those elements. It's going to be as much customization as we can fit in there, which
It'll be
we
very
know
handy
how
for
much.
streamers too, because like a lot of streamers have specific UI colors, or they want like their camera to be in a certain spot, so you build like move stuff around the way that you kind of like it to be. And I feel
Yeah,
like every MMO player plays differently. Like I like my stuff kind
Oh
of
yeah.
like in a specific space, and I know that other people do not. And some people who just have it all there, I'm like, it's so much
Well, and
stuff.
and
yeah.
it's not even that each player plays differently. It's almost even role dependent.
Oh
Like when
yeah.
Hmm.
I'm playing a cleric, the positioning of my nameplate for my targeting plate is very different than if I'm playing a DPS, right? Like I want that front and center. I want to see the party list in the middle of my screen and have the target living in the center as well. But I don't necessarily want that when I'm playing a different role. And so I think, having that, as you mentioned, the customization options to kind of resize, but not just resize, place in different locations and associate different connections and having them hook into the side. And, there's just a lot of like, ideas that we've discussed a lot with the UI team as a whole of like, where's been our greatest pain point as players and how can we address those in the designs that we're going to be emphasizing with our UI?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
see that kind of conversation happening more than just with UI. I see that
Oh
happening
yeah.
with when we're talking about web, when we're talking about
Oh yeah.
design of
No,
any
Colby's
sort.
favorite
Yeah.
thing is to see a designer in their GDD try to mock up the UX and
It's the
UI.
best. I live for those.
And
Yep.
I'm
That's
always
so
ashamed
good.
when I'm making graphic stuff because Colby and Mike are just amazing. And I'm like, oh, look at my stuff.
Oh, we
The,
have a
the good
full
news.
team of people. They're great at that. They do
Yes.
amazing work. So
Yeah, but obviously the desire there for, a designer incorporating that as part of their GDD is they're trying to communicate to Colby and the team like what are they trying to get out of a particular system with UI, right?
hmm.
And that's always a great informational piece, but you get a kick out of it sometimes.
Yeah, well, and it's one of the strengths of our team too, is people just know games, right? We have a
Yes.
bunch of, we're not just developers, we're all gamers. So
Yes.
everybody comes together and they're like, oh, well, in this game it worked like this. And they can give us a great like lead on, oh, you want the design to kind of fit this
Yes.
world. Okay, cool. And
And I
so
know that
it,
people are going to ask this specifically because of what you brought up, Stephen, in regards to, different roles. You want different types
Right.
of UI layouts. Will people
Hmm.
be able to save a layout and be able to like load it up based on what role they're playing?
Oh, we've discussed that in the past. That's
yep.
absolutely a desire. Is that oh, sorry, go ahead, Colby. You caught me.
Oh, it's okay. No, yeah,
Sorry.
we like one of the first things we did when we were starting to kind of block in the very base features of our HUD editor was talking about saving and loading profiles. We're going to have options
Yes.
for like, hey, when I'm in a raid, automatically change my UI to
Yes,
this,
Raid UI.
Yeah,
Yes.
when I'm in a
That would be
party, I
sick.
can change my UI to a specific thing. So it really will lend itself to customizing your experience. And we want to have really our kind of mantra is really solid defaults. So most people won't need to touch anything,
Yeah.
but then the customization for everybody who wants to.
Yeah. And that's always it's funny when we kind of have points of maybe contention or subjective kind of differences that we as players talk about, oftentimes it
Believe me,
lives
there
in the
are.
I know, absolutely there are, but it lives in the realm between, well, what's default, and then how are we giving the players the option to change that, right? And
Yep.
that, I think, is really the key in providing those things. And as Colby said, like, our objective, of course, on the default side is to make it most applicable to a broad audience, but give the flexibility that you can do whatever you want based on the many years you've been playing games and have, developed your own idiosyncrasies or habits that you prefer.
Yeah, like I'm a
Yeah.
weird player who plays with like I know a lot of people do WASDA. I'm like RDFG because I like having more keys around my like hand to be able to hit buttons versus like not. So I know some people are like that's so weird. I don't know how you could do that, but it's just like when you train yourself for 20 years, you get used to it. But it's not for
Hey,
everybody.
I'm super weird as well. I really only on my left hand use the hotkeys between tilde and 5, and then I use a function to do the later hotkeys in the hotbar for me.
I do
So
too.
I'll
I
use
use like
like
control
alt.
one, control alt
Yes,
one. Yeah.
exactly.
I want everything
Yeah.
to be easy to
I know.
access. I don't want to have to
Yeah.
stretch my hand across the keyboard.
There's no
Yes.
button past 6. That's
But I know, and then there's some people who just like clicking stuff, which I know like some people hate that. But it is very interesting to see how different people play.
Yeah.
And there's a right way and a wrong way. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
messing. But we do have some more stuff to go through, so I want to kind of get through that. And you had a lot of iconography stuff, so I don't know if you want to preempt this before we head into talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we can just look through these slides. We've done a ton of iconography work, and kind of similarly to what we're going to be doing for like a style guide for the UI, we're going to be building out style guides, small ones for each of the types of icons. So these are showing like, some ideation on the class iconography, or the icons that go at the edge of the different
I think those are
window
archetypes,
treatments.
but yeah,
Oh, yes, sorry, archetypes.
It's
Yes.
there are classes too.
Yes. But yeah,
But
we
also,
started
that's a
doing-
good point, actually, bringing up the differences between the archetype and the class, and how perhaps an icon can be promoted from its archetype state up to the class state and still salvage that iconography from the base archetype.
True, so you kind of know what your primary archetype is based on like your class
Right.
icon.
Yeah, we're trying to get that whole idea, locked down. So when you can see someone, you can tell what they are and, what I'm dealing
Right.
with here. So
Yeah,
That's
and that's the
definitely one of
primary
our-
purpose, right, of these types of UI elements is communicating that information. I mean, UI's whole purpose is communicating the information to the player, but at a glance with these particular icons, right? And that's the whole, I'm getting an understanding, and I'm familiar with that sword because it's the tank or something.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's a fine line for UI of like making something very, very like aesthetically pleasing, but also making sure it, satisfies that like base information it needs to tell me. So here you can see some of our ideation between the ability effects and how we go from, quick, sketches and moving them forward into ability icons. And we're going to have different like styles for different size of things too. So, ability icons are all going to fall into one style. And then like if we do a class emblem, it'll be more detailed. If we do something really tiny, it's got to be really simple, as you can see with like these ones on the right here.
Yeah,
They're just going to be.
Some of them are map oriented, so you have to be able to see them and understand what they are when they're like one by one pixel.
Yeah, some of the graphic ones are the hardest ones to do because they're just, you have to tell me what that is right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of great work on these. Natalie and Jeff have done a ton of awesome explorations on these. Natalie's been doing all the painting for the class abilities you guys have seen in the last live streams, and they've just been fantastic.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, I love the vivid nature of these icons, especially for the ability icons. The strong contrast that exists within the icon itself that lends to that easy communication of the ability recognition is super important.
Yeah, we're hoping to have a really awesome set of icons for you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we're going to move into some like actual mocks that are in game, right? That
Yeah.
you're working towards.
not quite in game. Well, some of them may be in game, but yes, these are just going to be the art mocks for what we've built so far. There's some extra ones that are in the works and things that are partial, but these ones are, yeah,
So Emily,
looking nice.
take a look at these. We're gonna be talking a little bit about kind of
Oh,
feedback.
these
that we'd
are
like in
going to
regards
be
them.
inspected like crazy.
I know they're gonna zoom in on every little thing. So this
And now
first one
I
is-
would like to preface, though, for those of you who are going to zoom in on every little detail, that as always, this is a work in progress and things are subject to change. Some things are even placeholder in these, so take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, not everything is built 100% accurate to every
Right.
single system. These are just mocks to get everything.
and especially as people
moving.
play more of the game, we'll be
Oh, yeah.
adjusting
yeah.
things and changing things and seeing what works and what doesn't. So, when Alpha 2 comes around, that's when the feedback is going to be very, very important. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and so this is kind of we wanted to include this, which is showing like all of the different buttons and accordions and filter buttons and drop downs that we use to build all these different screens. So, combined with the style guide that we had before, we're going to use these and we build out all of our screens, which you'll
And the
see
reason why
here.
they're called accordions is because it like opens up. These are things that like open up and kind of
Yep.
expand. So you can see like more of your quests or more of whatever it is.
And whenever
Yeah.
you interface with this particular UI element, it actually plays the audio cue of an accordion in the background.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's just
fun.
polka the whole time.
Don't give Kat a heart attack. She's like, what are you getting me into? Also, like our audio is amazing too. And not only does UI interact with design and engineering, but they're also working with audio and visual effects. Like there's a lot of coordination that has to happen for all
Oh,
those
yeah.
things.
Yep.
Next
Yeah.
one here
User.
is dialogue. And I think there's a couple dialogue ones, right?
Yeah, we show a couple different steps. So this will be like when you're talking to an NPC, you're going through your potential options of what you can talk about. You could ask additional questions, or you could jump straight into a quest, hook, whatever it happens to be. So some of our base treatments here, and then this is the quest delivery. So if you're talking to that NPC and they have something for you to start, a task, we'll present this as make your choice. Do you want to start this task right now? And give you the details that we have. And some objectives may be hidden, depending on the quest. So.
Ooh. All right, and then moving
Yeah,
into... Oh, go ahead, Stephen.
I was just going to say, it's a lot of, I've seen a lot of interesting iterations for how Quest gets delivered. From when I interface with an NPC, I move into this kind of alternate camera mode and I have the NPC kind of talking to me I have the bar underneath it. But I think that, when you're servicing multiple dialogue trees that have many different options, this approach is really conducive to kind of, keeping those options front and center to the player, letting them see that and navigating through the dialogue tree with a very easy to interact with quest window.
And we
which I
even
think
did
you
it
guys did a
that
great
other way
job
that
with
you've
this.
mentioned in our previous...
Yes, in Alpha 1.
Yeah.
One of our early iterations for UI as a placeholder was really that long bar at the bottom screen kind of approach. I'm really liking this. It'd be great to get feedback as you guys are kind of watching this. As always, it's very important for you guys to give feedback on what you're seeing. It's I know we'll talk about that at the end, but yeah, I do love these. These look great.
And
Yeah.
going into the backpack, which people got a little glimpse of some of this when we were showing our live stream last month.
Yeah, everything's coming online, becoming a little bit more usable and functional. And our main goal as UI is to get things in game and usable so that we can really test it, because ultimately you can design anything on paper, but really you got to get your hands on it in order to.
Absolutely.
I think we saw a lot of commentary in regards to segmenting the backpack into different, like harvestables and things like that. Gatherables, I should say, and quest items. People really liked seeing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Especially with the way our game's going to work, with the materials being a little bit, of a different interaction.
Treated
So
differently. Yeah.
yeah, and then the quest items is that quality of life, because as MMO players, we all know searching for the one vial that's not the vials of your potions, but it's the quest item.
Absolutely. And it's always great to have in the quest tracker that actually is living on the HUD with you, that accessibility for the item,
Yeah.
so you don't have to go digging for an activatable per se.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah,
hate
we'll
I
be
that.
love
doing
whenever
that too,
UI does
supporting.
that, like has that
Yeah.
support right there for you. That's nice.
Yeah.
Or something that you can drag on to your bar easily, things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we've got blacksmithing. I know that
Yeah.
people are going to be very excited to see
Oh
this.
my God. This is the first look I
This is the
think we've
first look.
shown of the crafting systems.
And this is kind of
Yeah.
our fast crafting, so not necessarily what we will be end goal, right, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit, Colby, about kind of designing for the kind of crafting needs.
Yeah, we work with designers a lot on these, so we've been talking with them about everything they want to get done. So this one is showing kind of the base needs that we were establishing to get this system in game and usable as soon as possible. So right now our crafting does work in game, and it's all functional, and we're building out the functionality as we go to, expand and based on what we test. So
And there's a lot of information you have to communicate via this window, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
how do you kind of blend between the idea of multiple sub pages that are required to kind of facilitate all the information versus how much you can show on one particular page? Like, talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, and this is where that game of, understanding how to organize the information, right? So we're creating kind of what we like to call like a visual language. So a lot of our panels, you'll see they'll have that left side accordion list, which is like a real, if we have a lot of dense information, we like to use these accordions because you can, have a shorter list and then expand out the parts that you're interested in. And then we kind of do that same thing where it's context. So you start on the left and you'll move to the right. So you make a selection and then there's like details on the right. And we try to create what we call like visual hierarchy to help you know, like, okay, I've clicked this and now I move over here and I've got buttons over here that are, the only other bright objects on the window. So it pulls me to say like, okay, I can look and see if I can craft this or whatever it happens to be. And there's going to be, some pretty robust systems. So we're really excited to see when we get our hands on it where we can make it better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a very important component of the testability. And the primary purpose of Alpha 2, as we've always stated, is going to be to get player feedback, to get player hands-on, giving us direction on how these things play out. It's such an important part of being a tester. So definitely it's very valued.
Yeah, definitely.
And folks did see the journal a bit last time. I saw a lot of commentary regarding that.
Yeah, a lot of great feedback, positive feedback about the journal, both from color composition to layout design to, a lot of different things. Colby, talk to us a little bit about kind of how you guys approached this style of introducing such a broad spectrum of colors. I feel like.
Yeah, we actually used the journal as one of our test cases for the style guide because it's a very complex screen. There's a lot of things that are going on where we have different tiers of story arcs that might be available for players. And so we wanted to make sure the color denoted different information for them. We also have iconography to support that as well. And we kind of have a little bit of a twist on what a traditional quest system would be like. So with these story arcs, we wanted to make sure that it was organized in a familiar way, but also something that supported all of the design's needs. And
right.
We really like how it came out.
Yeah, and we have a little bit more in-depth / complicated story arc system than you might find in most of your traditional MMORPGs, and how those kind of story arcs can be updated in real time, and kind of how players interface with different segments of that story arc. So, this journal has to facilitate all of those designs, which can make it, as you said, one of the most complicated probably windows that we utilize for characters outside of probably the mayoral interface. But
that's just going to spark more questions about like, what do you mean? How's
I know.
going? But perhaps that's going to be a future thing. We definitely need to have some more of our narrative folks on sometime and talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think Carfin might be a great opportunity for that.
Yeah, that's true. And if you did watch our extra live stream, you got a little teaser of some lore there. And then next up, and we're also later in this live stream, we're going to be showcasing
Little
some teasers as well.
of next month's live stream.
And then we've got options, which, for most of us, it's one of the first things that we experience in game. We're like, let me adjust all the things to be the way that I like them. Like, I want the FOV to be where I want. I want the audio to be where I want. And this requires even more elements for you guys to interact with and adjust. I'm sure that this was probably even more complicated to put together.
Yeah, well, and this is where that, like, having a really strong visual language and kind of making that information really accessible and organized in a good way was really just very important to us. So one of the other screens that we hit first, not exactly the thing everybody's like, ooh, let me see the options, but very important when we do get them out there in your hands. So
I think people will be happy because last in Alpha 1 we had like one slider and they were like, we were constantly getting folks asking for more options.
There'll be a few more sliders.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. I don't find myself as a player interfacing with the options menu in many games very often. I do, like you said, kind of at the start of my gaming experience.
Yeah.
But when I'm in the middle of a game and there's some option that I've newly discovered that is like, oh God, I need to change this and I need to change it fast. And I open that options menu and it is just an absolute cluster. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I need to now spend so much time here. So easy, intuitive navigation is definitely an important aspect of the options menu for sure.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be testing that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And definitely toss us your thoughts on that or what options you like. Obviously, this doesn't have everything in there, but it's giving you kind of a glimpse into the future. And our character screen, which, we have shown various different versions of this throughout the lifespan of Ashes of Creation.
I know, we have.
It's gone through many iterations. And I know there's been a couple that people haven't liked, a few that people have liked. I know that there's always a lot that you have to display here. And so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, Colby.
Yeah, we were building this out and we wanted to kind of create something that would handle a couple of different roles with obviously your equipment slots for what we call a paper doll, which is that display of your character. Eventually, it won't just be a image of your character. We hope to have the 3D character and be able to rotate around, look at what you're wearing. And then we wanted to support a couple of different features here with some base stats, the equipment, which will show, what equipment you have available to quick swap so you don't have to have your inventory and the screen open. Detailed stats for those people who want to get into all of the details.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, gear sets. So this is going to be able to, swap your sets of gear quickly and being able to save different loadouts. And, we know all the players who have 2 sets, and there's players who have hundreds of sets. So
yeah,
well, I gotta have all my costumes too,
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
So this has been a lot of the stuff that we've worked on over the past, year. We've built out the style guide while supporting all of these live streams, and it's just been, awesome to see this team get up and running in such a short time and get a ton of work in.
Yeah, and you have definitely been supporting a lot of teams. I know a lot of the things that we're showcasing each month, you guys have some semblance of little bits and pieces that you're kind of showcasing in there. So like Steven said, this is the first time we're like just focusing on UI, which I think is kind of exciting.
And
Yeah,
Colby,
it's fun.
talk to us a little bit about kind of the types of feedback you like to see from a demonstration like this of the UI.
Yeah, I mean, just general, like, people's feeling of these things. The best feedback will, of course, be when you guys are able to get your hands on it. But if you guys have real strong opinions on, hey, I want to see these kind of things in my journal, and
Or features
we've got
from UI.
Yeah, we have a lot of, features planned, and we have a lot of good, options available. And there's going to be things that you haven't seen, like maybe your journal ties into an archive that has a little bit more of that lore background in it, and it keeps track of what maybe stories you've participated in. So we've really, we're building
Always
this out.
leaking.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, we're just building this out, part by part, and we're going to be supporting the team. So if you guys see stuff that you really like, make sure to throw a thumbs up out there, make a post or comments. Because we do read all of this stuff, and we try to make sure that we're, seeing the feedback people are giving.
Absolutely.
We'll
I mean,
be.
especially.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We'll be putting up a thread. It'll probably be up right now, right meow,
Right.
over on our forums.ashesofcreation.com. Check it out over there. Definitely leave us some thoughts on our UI. We'll have a few questions that are good, like starters for you. But definitely tell us what you'd like to see, some features that you'd like to see, what features you liked from the displays that we showed today. And we will be creating a report for the UI team and providing that. Roshan and Vacner are always so great about putting those together, and they're super in depth. They read through everything, which makes it very easy for the design team and development team to be able to quickly read through those and get a good overview of kind of your guys' thoughts and feelings and suggestions. You guys always have some great
Yes.
ideas as well.
And
Yeah.
always make sure to incorporate as part of your feedback, the examples and inspiration for you that you've experienced that did things well from a UI. What stands out about a game that you think had great UI? What was it about that game that you felt was great with regards to their UI? And what were some examples of games that had bad UI, and why did you feel that it had bad UI? Those are great, like, cornerstone touch points on how to give good feedback, is always using those references, right? Because it's there that we can find better detail oriented kind of inspection. So yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
give us
And
your feedback.
And with that, I do want to give you a chance, Colby, to kind of do a little plug. I know you have one, of course, and then anything else you want
Oh,
to
yeah.
say at the end of here before we head on over to our character art segment.
Yeah. So, well, our UI team has grown quickly over the past year, but we are looking for one more UI artist or UX designer. We're looking for someone to help join the team and kind of build this out with us. So if you guys are, if you have some experience, please, send us your resume and
Absolutely.
apply.
Get out there and help us raise awareness.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I just want to give thanks to our team, because our team is awesome. We work really hard, and we have a really nice, diverse set of people who are able to accomplish all of these different tasks while we're able to, help this game come to life. So we're just very fortunate. We got a great team over here.
All right. Well, definitely head on over intrepidstudios.com/careers if you are interested, or if you know somebody forward along that position. We'd love to fill it with someone who's amazing to join our Intrepid family. And with that, we're going to say thank you, Colby. We're going to head on over to our next segment, which is our character art update. So we will see you momentarily.
Bye, Colby. Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys.
Welcome back. We hope that you all
that
had
was
fun.
That was an in-depth exploration of the UI process.
Very much so. And it seemed like you all really, really enjoyed that. We hope that you did. It seems like y'all did. And obviously, like Stephen mentioned there, a lot of it's work in progress. It's not final, but we will have a lot of customization, a lot of options, as we noted in there.
I can't wait to go on the Reddit later and just see all the speculation and hypotheses and theory crafting about these windows.
And of course, there you guys will be able to see some more of them. We usually share a lot of the pieces throughout the month, so definitely keep an eye on our social for those things. But I did want to cover a couple different questions that Vacner and Roshan tossed my way. These were kind of side things, which is people are wondering if they'll be able to share UI layouts. So let's say I have a UI layout that I really like. Is that something that we may have options to share, or is that something we could explore in the future?
That can be a little bit difficult. We've talked about it in the past, but there are unique elements that would be exposed for certain classes and or characters that might not be for others. And that data might be difficult to have transferable or shareable, but it's something that we're not shying away from looking into. So no definitive answer yet on that.
And I know we did say that UI will be customizable. You'll be able to move stuff around, scale things the way you'd like.
Yep.
In most games, you always are able to add extra action bars or ability bars, and they're curious if that's going to be something, because we didn't say it explicitly.
Yes,
but
yes, absolutely. Yeah, there is no shortage of customization that we want to provide each player, because some people like to have a very minimalistic number of hotbars. They don't need necessarily to have, 3, 4, 5 hotbars that are available. But some people do like that. They want to have all their items listed on their hotbar, as well as their abilities, as well as their mounts, as well as anything that they can essentially interact with as as an icon. They want to place it somewhere on a hotbar that's visible.
Yeah.
So the breadth of customization should encompass those desires from the more minimal to the heavier player type.
And when we're in our betas and we have a lot more of that stuff accessible to you all, if you have any feedback along the way, we're all ears. You've seen our journey along the way. We're constantly taking y'all's feedback, and maybe we won't be able to implement stuff immediately, but we'll definitely be taking your feedback and communicating with you all along the way. And then the last one here was, will there be weight capacity? There's been a lot of questions in regards to that. That's not really
No, there's
UI
not.
related, but
Yeah, there's not weight capacity. Weight management, in my opinion, and this is of course subjective, but weight management is not a compelling mechanic for players to have to deal with in an MMO setting. It can be for sure in a survival game type mode, or in other types of games, but really we want to focus on spacing, and we want to focus on stack size, those kind of supplement where weight would be relevant. This is more about like, how much capacity do I have? What are the shapes and sizes of the different types of materials and or gatherables that I might acquire, and how does that fit into my gatherable bags, and what are my stack limits, and how can those stack limits be kind of augmented or changed based on the bag type or quality that I purchased from a crafter, or my expertise within a particular profession when I'm gathering resources out in the wild. That's where we want to kind of make those choices be more relevant, and compelling.
all right. And with that, I think we're ready to move on to our character art update. So we'll
Yay.
be doing that. Let's show all the things. There's so many cool things, and like I said, stay till the end. We've got a little
Oh
teaser for you
yes,
guys
we
at the
have a
end.
little
So.
video teaser. You got to stay for that.
So with that, we will first kick things off with, you guys did see some Cyclops weapons before, but now there's even more Cyclops weapons, which these are looking very, very awesome.
I'm sad actually, because I don't have my I
Oh,
don't have a view
extra
screen that I
monitors, so
can
you
see.
can't see.
I know, I can't see. What are we
In the
looking
run of
at?
show, I usually always have all of the images for him, so
I
he
know,
can
but
see
I don't
them.
have. Yeah, I don't have it.
But these are the Cyclops weapons. There's mace, bow, wand, all the
Okay,
goodies.
I'm looking on my phone. I apologize to the audience if I'm looking on the phone. Yeah, to give you guys an idea, the Cyclops, which you'll be seeing at some point here in the very near
Mm-hmm.
future, is and you guys have seen the model for it already in the past, right?
Some parts of it,
Is some parts of it. It
yeah.
is a very large, like 45 or 50 foot. I think it's like over
He's
50 feet.
carrying a tree in one of the images
Yeah,
that we
it's like a
shared. Yeah.
50-foot tall giant raid boss, and he has a lot of like natural oriented weapons that are available that he uses, and I think the character team just did a great job with these. They really kind of, I think, reflect the nature of that particular creature,
Yeah.
which is always cool to have, because it ties you into that story. It ties you when
Well,
you
it's got to
acquire this
drop
thing, or
cool loot. You got to have some cool
exactly.
Cyclops loot.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
also, we're going to talk a little bit more about Carfin here because we're going to show some cool Carfin weapons. But look at these weapons. They're so sick. And I heard that y'all got your bingo card. The community puts together like a little bingo card of things that they think we're going to talk about in the live stream. I always love seeing how,
Did
it
they
turns
get a
out.
bingo
They got a
card?
bingo. Yeah. When you said
That's a
Carfin during the
bingo.
UI segment, they got
Oh,
their bingo, which is cute. But yeah, these are looking awesome, and these are achievable items, which is very, very cool.
yeah. I apologize. I just want to watch it on my phone because I don't have another screen here, so I'm not distracted.
Yeah, he's not looking at his phone for other reasons. He's watching the thing.
Yeah.
And then we've got some NPCs that have been created. So this first one is an ambitious academic. There's a couple different versions with the petticoat vibes.
Yeah, these are pretty cool.
Hmm. And I don't know if we want to tease a little bit about the academic aspect of it, what for Carfin, but
Oh
it-
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I think you're talking about the story
yeah,
and yeah, you guys, those of you who probably tuned in during the live stream for Extra Life last November, got a little bit of history and story around Carfin. Carfin is a very large dungeon complex. It's both an urban area at the base and then a huge mega dungeon with lots of different levels. I had a lot of fun in other games as inspiration with like those of you who played Lineage 2 with Tower of Insolence and the Kruma Tower, I thought were really cool. And if the story behind the tower at Carfin is that it is actually a part of the university complex that was initially brought to the Ayla humans by the elves, the Pyrian elves, and they kind of helped establish and taught the humans how to master the essence and how to master magic. And this was one of the great universities of the Aylan Empire. So a lot of the experience and encounters there are going to be arcane in nature. They're going to be representative of that essence magic, and it's going to have some powerful foes.
and also I was just told, thank you, Jeremy, for DMing me, that this is a dropped set. So this is not a NPC outfit. This is like a thing that you will achieve in game.
Yes.
So apologies. Sometimes I don't have all the context. But yeah. So then this is the River Stalker, which I already saw y'all. I'm showing it while Stephen was talking, but it's very, very cool. And then I don't know if you want to say who this
I
is.
love that fur.
Yeah, I know the fur looks so good.
The fur looks
texture
so good. Do
good.
the boots have, is it boots with the fur?
It is. There are some boots
There
with
are
the
boots
fur.
with the fur?
We have a lot
But
of
what?
boots with the fur. I think people like boots with the fur. This next one is. Do we want to say who she is? I have her name, but I didn't know if you wanted to share that yet.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because there have been people who have been wondering who this lady is, but we haven't
I
shared.
think we saved that. I
We
I
saved
don't
the name?
know.
Okay.
I think next month when we do the Tower of Carfin kind of walkthrough, we can
Well,
expand
this
on that a
is
bit.
okay.
Are you
'Cause
talking? I don't know if I'm looking at the right thing. I'm looking at a statue right now.
this is a different. This is not the person. The other person we have talked about during the
Right.
Extra
No,
Life
I'm not
live stream.
talking about the
Her.
raid boss.
Okay.
I'm yeah. I'm talking about the influence of the previous deans of the
Yes.
college.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. I will not say her name then. And then we've got Laria Lamont, which we have talked
Laria.
about before.
Yes, she was the primary protagonist become antagonist um, in the story from last November's live stream with Extra Life. And now you can see her character model. And she is a very powerful wizard who, unfortunately, in her desire to save as many as possible, went down a path that was unfortunately irrecoverable for her. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that also next
Yeah.
month.
I feel like this is what you would hear from her. Just like a little crying.
Just the
Just
morning, yeah,
like, the
absolutely.
moaning. And then we've got some concept art that we will show. And the first
Someone
one
said,
here.
Pizza Drew said, I can fix her.
Aw.
I just imagine players saying that as they're rushing to the top of the tower.
And then we've got the Aelin city. Kind of see a little bit here.
Oh yeah, you get to see a little bit of the grandiose nature of the starting city in the Aelan Empire. So this was the former capital of the Aelan Empire, and this is where players are returning to if you choose that particular divine gateway.
It's huge. The
It is
QA team
very
is kind of running
large.
through it because we were trying to see like the space, and it's just massive.
It is a
Um,
massive area. And again, the reason why it's so large and why this might be very atypical for us as players to experience in such a starting area something so big is because this place changes based on what you do in the world, and different areas of this city become accessible as the world develops further, and there's reasons for you to come back at later levels and kind of experience that. Because again, part of what makes, I think, the system design around these nodes and world building so compelling from an MMORPG specific perspective is that many MMOs we play, we go through progression and we leave areas and we never go back to those areas. They become essentially, content that gets lost. And that's such a sad concept to have, because a lot of time goes into making those areas compelling and beautiful, and something that's iconic in your experience within the game. But the way that our world progresses and that our points of interest progress as well, those areas are constantly being updated. They're constantly changing, and you're maintaining that traditional experience of character progression and leveling for new players that are coming and joining later. But now they're immersed in the social environment as well, because the player population hasn't moved past that area like we see in many other MMORPGs. You have an opportunity to actually graduate into that social environment, because this area has opportunity for late game players to come back and explore and experience things.
Yeah, the persistence in our world is a little bit different. So, what my experience as a new player is might be different from someone else's, especially if we both start playing it at a different time frame, which is really cool.
Yes.
And this is concept, because I know some people were asking. This is concept, but I'm all like we've already seen the.
Oh, our concepts
Yeah,
to
they look pretty.
implementation are very one to one.
If you've seen some of our other concepts and then our in game, they're pretty great because our artists are just phenomenal. But I've already seen some of this being gray boxed in the world. Like I said, we were running around it. It's massive. And then there's also the Alien Portal area, which we've already started seeing in game as well, the model of it. And you can see like the little people for the scale, how big this thing is. It's huge. And that is.
So, Batty or Pierce said, "The Stargate." It's a defined gateway. There's a difference. I do love Stargate though. Stargate is a
I know,
great
I
show.
like Stargate too. There's an RPG for Stargate, which I've gotten to play. It's really fun.
Oh, that's cool.
But yes, no Stargate. With that, we're going to head into our Q&A segment. I'll have some images up in the background while we do Q&A.
Jaffa Cree. I'm sorry.
Love it.
That's so good.
With that, we have our first question from Rufian. They want to know about ranged weapons, which is, what will be the differences between a crossbow and a regular bow? And I think we've talked about short bow versus a long bow.
Yeah, we don't have crossbows. However, bows of different types will vary across many different stats, between the damage that's done, the damage window that's possible, the attack speed, stats that are associated with those particular types of weapons. And not only that, but very important is the weapon skill progression. So each weapon group or weapon type has a associated skill progression. Where you can unlock the ability to proc certain types of effects, and they also have associated with them different combos that can be utilized.
Sorry. And you know what? The chat is right. I got excited to get into the Q&A that I missed the studio update again. And normally I'm like looking at the run of show, but I just kind of went past it. Yeah, do you have any updates for us for the studio? I know we talked a little bit about the fun stuff we were doing for February, but
yeah, we talked a little bit about that. We are now moving into, we have moved into, as of last month and this month, another round of significant hiring. You can see that on our intrepidstudios.com website. It is, of course, important, and just a side comment. I'm sure many of you, as we are, aware of the kind of turbulent times that the tech industry is seeing right now with the layoffs from different studios and companies. And that's always a hard thing to watch because the gaming industry is an industry of passion, and it is an industry of creatives who deserve an opportunity to excel in their work and feel confident and secure in their position and the jobs that they have. And it's a sad thing to see when those things kind of happen. But at Intrepid Studios, we endeavor to be different, and I think we've done a great and sustainable way to kind of proceed with this game's development. And I want to kind of shout out the fact that we have opportunities at the studio. Yes, we are very selective, and the recruitment process can be a bit difficult, but I just want to say to those people out there who are affected, you can send your applications into intrepidstudios.com. Go on there, take a look at the jobs that are available. If you don't see one that pertains to you necessarily, you can still provide your resume, and we will consider those. So that hiring process is moving forward. Additionally, we've had
On
some.
that front, I just want to
Uh,
mention that
yeah.
on the careers page, there is an uncategorized section that says, don't see
Yes.
your position, you can still apply and apply through that one right there.
Absolutely. And then in addition to that, we've been changing up a little bit some of our production practices over the course since the start of this new year. We are now seeing in the month of February the fruits of those changes, which are bountiful. And we are very happy with, I think, some of these production changes that we've seen. Jacob spearheading that charge has been doing a great job in that sense. So the studio update is very strong in February. Very strong indeed.
Yeah, it's been pretty exciting for me too. And moving back to the Q&A segment, I do want to ask a follow-up question in regards to you, because you stated there aren't crossbows, but we have sold crossbow-looking items. Are those considered short bows, or
Yes,
how? Because they look like crossbows.
Those would be considered skins, and they so we that's a good question. Let me check into that actually, because I don't know specifically what you're in reference to, and I would want to make sure I'm giving an accurate answer. So I will look into what that was. It's likely that that would be a skin that's applied to a different weapon category that's not a crossbow category.
Okay. I will make a note that Stephen will look into
Yes,
this.
and then we'll post that answer on the forums, or Cody will.
Yeah, that sounds great. We can post that as a response in the live stream thread.
Is that a thing on the bingo card that Stephen got stumped on a question?
No, but I think derailing is on there.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Which you've done.
Did I ever tell you about the time that I fired a crossbow?
Like real IRL?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
I have
actually
as well.
very difficult to pull that string
Those
back.
in general are hard to pull back if you've
Oh,
ever.
one time like my initial thing in archery, I think I pulled it back and I shot the arrow up and it went over the shooting range, and I could have sworn I heard somebody scream, but yeah, that was a. I'm just kidding. I was trying to derail so whoever had that bingo card could get the point.
Okay, gotcha. It's just like, oh my God, it's scaring me. Digital Daydream wants to know about player corruption. Are corrupted players able to enter a freehold's boundaries or access its content? And if so, what's stopping freeholds from being corrupted players' safe havens? I actually kind of love this idea where you're on the run and you're like, gotta stay in your house. No, I'm just kidding.
So corrupted players can access their freeholds.
Can they access
However,
other people's freeholds?
well, freeholds are in the open world, so
Yeah.
you can move into those freeholds. The protection area is in the house.
Mhm.
But what corrupted players can't do is they cannot interface with storage, nor can they interface with player trading either while corrupt. So if they had storage items that were on their freehold, they wouldn't have the opportunity to deposit or withdraw.
All right. Hopefully that answers the question there. And then we have Ethlove, who wants to know about class-specific actions. What kind and how many special or unique activities can we expect classes to perform outside of combat, such as rogues opening locks, tracking enemies as a ranger, or removing corruption from the ground as a cleric?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's funny that this question exists because just 30 minutes ago I was talking about those utility abilities, like finding tracks or cleansing poisons, arcane eye to reveal secret passages. Um, the idea is, how do we blend the traditional tabletop RPG role of utility and or skill checks into the setting of a graphical MMORPG? And I think that it's both a complement of the skill kit that's available and how it interacts with the world for those curated or special designs within these locations. So to answer that question, that is intended. We've shown a little bit of that in the past, and it is something that we want to make feel compelling and rewarding and viable as a use case scenario in many different settings that you might find yourself in within the world.
And not a question that's on here, but I will add it as a bonus one because the ranged
Yes.
weapon one didn't get answered. But we are moving to 5.1. I know a lot of people were asking about that. We're constantly keeping an eye on,
Oh
the
yeah.
latest
Actually, that's been
engines. Yeah.
a big endeavor
Mhm.
over the course of the last, I would say, about 6 weeks. And uh, just to give you guys a bit of context, if you're unfamiliar kind of with the game development process, um, engine upgrades can be a very taxing process. It especially becomes so given how many custom changes that a project makes to the engine. Making those merges over can be kind of a bit of a headache. And we have a great team. Our networking team's been doing a great job. Zach has been spearheading that process for the network changes along with Mitch. And it took a little bit longer for us to make that move over because we initially started moving over to 5.1, and then the 5.1.1 update dropped with a lot of great additions from Epic, and we decided to bite the bullet and just take it a step further to 0.1.1. So I think that actually, Margaret, you would know this,
Yeah.
that QA has their hands on that now, I
Yes,
think.
today. So
Yeah.
last night we did our build lock. Like Steven said, for the last like 6 weeks, we've been working towards this. The next sprint for that team is going to be focusing on bug fixing. So yesterday we locked the build. We got a good dev build that we wanted to use as our basis, and then we will be merging that all up to our dev engine. And hopefully everything will go well and we'll be able to move things. We're locked today, and then we should be unlocking again on Monday so people can check things in. I know designers are like, why? But just bear with us
Why?
one day, guys. And we're doing a lot of testing. We'll probably have a
And
few
just so you
bugs
guys,
throughout the first couple weeks, but we'll get
yeah.
those resolved.
And just so you guys know that what Margaret's referring to when she says check-ins and locking, essentially our source control method utilizing Perforce is how kind of developers make things and they submit those things into Perforce. And right now, locking that down means that we're not allowing any additional changes so that we can solidify that 0.1.1 update.
Otherwise, you're merging into stuff that's like not exactly the same, and it can
Right.
cause other issues. So we just want to make sure
Other
that we're,
headaches.
yeah, we know what the basis is, and then as we merge in, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the testing, I haven't looked at what the test results have been from that full regression test yet. I'll probably see that by the end of the today. And then if everything goes well, Monday we should be rocking and rolling, and we'll just be doing a lot of bug fixing for the next couple weeks.
I know a
but
lot of
yeah.
artists that are very excited to get their hands on the 0.1.1 update.
Yes, I think all the departments were getting, there were things that were blocking them
I
with
think Tech
the
Art was
5 point.
literally like
Yeah.
knocking down the door. It's like, when are we gonna? I'm just kidding.
But we had like our IntrepidNet stuff and things. So like there was just a lot of things that we were trying to resolve before we pushed that up. So, but we're good
Yeah.
now. We're moving up, and we know there's going
That's
to
a
be
little
some
bit of a
bugs.
studio update, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
That should have been part of the studio update. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on all the time, so we're constantly working towards things, homies.
Yeah.
But go back to the Q&A here. We do have a question from Rushis, which wants to know about racial abilities. Will any of your race or class choices affect your artisan skills?
That is something that is still up in the air a little bit. We haven't touched too heavily on the racial ability side of things. It is entirely possible that it might. The concern there, though, would be that we want equitability across race types with at least the benefits that, not the benefit types, but at least that you're having some benefits, so that when we talk about like, a crafter being pigeonholed into a specific type of race that might not align with what they want to do elsewhere, they aren't forced to do that because of a specific racial ability that only that race has access to. So, one thing we've talked about in the past is replacing the racial abilities with more of a background style where you get to select your background regardless of race. And so those two aren't tied intrinsically, but instead it's like, I'm an orphan who was raised in the temple, therefore I have this racial trait, right?
I'm an
Like that.
urchin.
Right, exactly. I think that's probably the direction that we're going to go in. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. And then we've got Halcyon Days who wants to know about the threat meters. Will there be a threat meter of any kind, such as a tank only ability or aura within a certain range?
Well, I know that this is a highly contentious topic.
There's DPS meter, tank
I
meter.
know. I'm gonna
They
give
like
you
meters, Stephen.
I'm gonna give you my subjective perspective here. Um, is that meters, in my opinion, are a removal from the the game immersion. And what I mean by that isn't necessarily even the fact that having the meter kind of takes you out of the game per se, but there's a lot of diegetic kind of approach that you can take that doesn't rely on UI elements like a meter to kind of indicate how you should do a thing. And when you're not utilizing those types of meters, you can do different types of strategies and encounter design, right? You can have things that can be more subtle and aren't going to be immediately given away by a meter indicating something. And that's the type of gameplay that we think that I believe we want to emphasize. And for that reason, we're not going to be including threat meters. What we will be including, however, are animation indicators. We're going to be including ability indicators to kind of show the tank like, hey, I might be losing aggro here. Like I am observing in the world these immersive elements that are not tied to any specific type of UI, but indicate to me that this monster might be moving off to attack somebody else in a very immediate future. And now I should be using the abilities that I'm saving to kind of regain that aggro or to lock them down with a taunt or something, right? That to me is a bit more representative of the type of gameplay we want to bring in our encounter design. And for that reason, that's why we're not including threat meters. Now, that's different than a DPS meter, right? The DPS meter to me was more about kind of what role DPS meters provide in online communities that I've noticed in the past. My experiences, they can be a bit toxic, they can be a bit exclusionary, excuse me. And that's why we don't want the DPS meters. The threat meters is we want to indicate threat. We want to tell you, hey, you might be losing threat. We just don't want to do that through a meter.
All right. And our next question is from Armored Cell, and it's about making friends. Will all creatures be hostile? And if not, could I, for example, give gifts to goblins to try and make them more friendly to me?
Not all creatures will be hostile. I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past when talking about like taming and or certain types of like creature gatherable resources. There are herds that exist out there. There are big game that exist out there where they're not going to aggro and attack you per se. Also, lower level monsters and certain type of like social monsters may not attack you off the bat. So not every creature is aggro. We toyed with the idea early on of having kind of faction-based reputation that could change that dynamic between you and certain NPC factions. While that exists in the non-monster NPCs that live within nodes and our merchant guilds or whatever, we haven't extended that out to the monster population. And I don't know that we will in the first iteration or the first in the initial launch for Ashes of Creation. That might be something that we delegate to a future patch. I'm not opposed to the idea. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's interesting. I think it can be compelling and it plays into player agency. But yeah, not for the first go around.
It's an endeavor. And then
Yes.
Drunk Ninja wants to know about tanks and boats. How will tanks hold threat on monsters while on a boat?
That's a good question. So there's a few ways that you can do that. One is boats have attachments that live on them. Those could be potion launchers. They could be other types of damage dealing attachments. And users who are on the boat and utilizing those types of attachments will have the damage assigned as a threat. Essentially as hate to them. So if I'm shooting the potion launcher and I shoot a target, the damage I do gets assigned to me as threat essentially. But in addition,
Don't get them excited about potion launchers again.
I know. Well, I love potion launchers. Sorry. In addition, you might have unique ammunition that can be used, which amplify that threat. But that doesn't discount the fact that your skill sets can still be used on boats and or in water. So as a tank, I'll have ranges on my taunts and on my hate generation abilities, and I'm going to be expected to use those rotations in a nautical setting or on land. So I think that that's acceptable. Outside of that, I would say it's going to be relatively normal mechanics when it comes to threat generation and utilizing your skill sets and rotations.
All right. And then we've got a question here from Nick about detargeting. Will there be detargeting abilities in Ashes of Creation?
Yes, there will be detargeting abilities in Ashes of Creation. I think that one of the main applications for the ability to kind of detarget, in my opinion, there's two types of detargeting. There's the ability to remove hate or aggro from myself, which might trance an enemy target or pacify them. But then in addition, if we think about PvP settings and the role of taunt or hate, a lot of times for tanks in the MMOs that I've played, there where you have a PvE and PvP scenario, those types of hate generation abilities don't really have cross application into the PvP realm, and that can feel kind of bad because typically a tank build out can be delegated around how I generate hate. And if it has no cross application into PvP, then effectively you're creating a class composition that just is not relevant in half of the game or in that area of the game. So when we talk about how we're going to apply hate to player targets or taunt to player targets, sometimes that can move into the realm of target switching or the ability to demand that target on the tank in a PvP scenario as well. That's something that we need to get player feedback on because there's a lot of strong emotions around that type of mechanic. I, for one, am a big proponent of that. I think it's interesting. I think that it plays into the role of the tank, and that it hits a class fantasy that most tank players want to feel. And I think, however, on the flip side of that, it is a source of control. And anytime you're under the effects of some source of control, it's going to be a feel bad moment for the target that's being controlled. So that's why I think it generates a lot of feelings on both sides of the aisle there. But yeah, you guys should opine on that. Give us your thoughts, how you feel about those types of mechanics.
All right. And then we've got a question about the summoner from The Pepper. How will the summoner interact with threat management? For example, would each summon have their own threat level?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So summons exists within a kind of a mini um, uh, Trinity, in the sense that I can summon certain types of pets that excel either as DPS, as support, or as a tank, essentially. And the ones that serve the role of the tank, they will have their own taunt and hate generation ability rotations as well. That's the role of the summoner. That's what's fun about a summoner, in my opinion. But in addition to that, there will be other mechanisms that are available for the summoner themselves that don't live on the pet. Some of those things might be the ability to transfer pain. Which is essentially if the summoner takes damage, then the summon takes a portion of that damage. The same might be true for hate. If the summoner takes hate, they can transfer a portion of that hate over to the summon as well. And then in addition to that, um, Shit, I lost my train of thought. Excuse me. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going with that one. It was a long night last night. I think I went to bed at about 4 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Some people were
I'm
saying
sorry.
you look kind of tired, and that makes sense.
I'm sorry. I don't come to Vegas too often, and I came and I do like to play poker, and I was playing
Mm.
poker. My last meeting ended last night at like 11:30, and I was walking past the poker room, and I was like, oh, there's like some poker games. I'm gonna go try poker, and I ended up staying there till like 4 in the morning.
I like craps, but yeah.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Throwing the dice is fun. It gets a little hectic sometimes at those tables. Sorry. Anyways, where I was going with the summoner.
Summoner. There's different,
Yeah.
depending on the type of pet
Yeah,
you
depending on the type
choose.
of
Yeah.
summon, you'll have access to those types of abilities. So yes, that is intended as a mechanic for the summons.
Okay. Hopefully that answered your guys' question. Basically, I think the main thing was would each summon have their own threat level versus like me as a summoner having like all
No,
my
the
summons.
summon will have its own hate.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
answer. And
Yes.
Ezra was wondering about death in war.
And by the way, that's not just for summons. That's also for combat pets as well, which are agnostic of class. That those are considered its own entity on the hate list.
And this question is, are the death penalties for losing to Guild War opponents in PvP equivalent to the combatant ones, or the non-combatant ones, or something else altogether?
No,
And I
no, no.
think this
Those are
stems from because in sieges we stated that you wouldn't drop things the same way, and death penalties wouldn't be the same as in the open world.
correct. Yeah, that's correct. So again, we have to think about those penalties applied in two different realms. In a sanctioned event, sanctioned meaning that this is something you have the option to opt out of. That's a castle siege, that's a node siege, that's a caravan, that's a guild war, that's a node war. Like you can drop your citizenship, you can drop your guild tag, you can drop participating in one of those things. In any of those types of opt-in and opt-out events, the death penalties do not exist. These are sanctioned. They're intended to allow people to engage in PvP, right? Now, if I die to an NPC while I'm out hunting, or if I die to another player through the flagging system, those are where death penalties come into play, and that's where dead experience can be earned, and that's where corruption can be had. So it's important to kind of separate those two realms.
All right. And that is our final question. We are going to wrap things up, but stay around for the end video. Got a little,
Are we going to sign off with the teaser?
yeah, sign off with the teaser.
Ooh,
I
okay,
think that's fun.
cool.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think
Okay.
it's fun. Everybody in chat's like, teaser now.
Teaser, give me the teaser. All right. With that, we just want to remind you to check out over on our forums, forums.ashesofcreation.com. We'd love for your feedback, especially on the UI stuff that you saw today. We will have our Songs of the Goddess cosmetic swapping over on March 8th. We also have a really cool calendar if you want to check that out over on ashesofcreation.com/news. You can download it and you can have a full year calendar for yourself with some really cool Ashes of Creation art. Very lovely art, I would say. And of course, we want to say thank you to all of you for tuning in and watching. We really appreciate your support and your continued support following along with our journey through development. We know, not a lot of companies do this, so sharing our development progress is definitely a long-term journey. Making games is not an easy feat as much as people think it may be, and we will launch when we are ready. We assure you that our focus is making a great quality game, and we hope that you will have fun whenever we are able to get your hands on it in Alpha 2. And we also want to say thank you to Colby for joining us and sharing all the good UI stuff and his lovely team. And of course, Stephen, thank you for your time. I know you're very busy, but we appreciate it. We hope that you all stay safe and healthy. The VOD will be up on Twitch right away after we are done here, and then we'll also upload it to our YouTube channel. And if you leave us a comment on the development update and you subscribe to our channel, you may be spotlighted as one of our winners to be spotlighted in our next dev update next month. And of course, follow us in all the places: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all the places. We're everywhere. We constantly are posting almost every day for you guys. So we hope that you enjoy that. And with that, we hope you enjoy a little teaser of what's to come in our next stream.
Bye,
Toodles.
guys. Enjoy.